Okay, this is going to be my week 6 reflection, the last reflection of this class so far. I'm going to split up into a few different segments. The first segment I want to kind of touch on is the collective bargaining section that we talked about this week in our discussion board. And then I'm going to bring in a little bit about the workday and just a little reflection about the class overall. As you mentioned, to start thinking about it, if we were a person in leadership or administrator in charge, what we would do with that and how we'd utilize what we've learned in this class and really in the whole courses up to this standpoint. First of all, the first question about unions and collective bargaining, benefits programs, those are things that really I struggle with the perspective of people out in society, even within my colleagues within the same profession. I view lots of different perspectives on the discussion board with having people from charter schools to big non-teachers to private schools to parochial schools to public schools. In public schools or non-union schools, hearing you talk about a little bit last week was be interesting to find out more about that. And I think a lot of it breaks down as I put in my discussion board, as I reflected through different people's opinions. What I saw that was really in common is that for the situation to work when it comes to a school district, putting a contract together with compensation and benefits that make teachers, administration, community members all happy and satisfied with it financially, really I think is when there's good communication. And the theme that seemed to come up a lot was trust. It seems like some teachers speak of not trusting unions, not trusting administrations, school boards, not trusting politicians. That's probably the area I struggle the most with as I look at the state of Minnesota and I see the politicians there in Minnesota at the legislature this year discussing educational plans and programs, and I just really wonder what their background in it is. And have they ever sat on school boards? How many schools have they actually been in? What prospective teachers do they know? What prospective community members and administrators? The whole gamut as they start creating policy and funding and realizing the consequences of what they choose to do through legislation. And then even at the federal level. It was interesting this weekend. I have a daughter working for Senator Dianne Feinstein in Washington, D.C., and to hear the discussion and legislation. And she was talking to some people with her dad as an educator in the office she's working in, and really there's no discussion of education at the federal level, very little. Right now it's all about guns, it's about immigration, it's about finances, but really education is the future of our country. You see a lot of state governments. I have relatives in Chicago and the state of Illinois. Their pension funds are done a little bit differently there, but they're blaming a lot of their financial problems in the state of Illinois on the teachers' retirement plans and benefits. They say the teachers are getting rich and wealthy, living a lifestyle of leisure. I think I commented somewhere in one of my projects that I did here in the last week, that they say that the average teacher in the state of Minnesota retires on about $53,000 a year, where that is no life of leisure. And that's probably a teacher that's been in a public metropolitan school district and is very well educated, at least master's or higher, and that has the ability to retire on that type of income through the Minnesota retirement program. Otherwise, people that weren't a rule of 90, they're going to be working until they're 70 and to get Social Security, and it's a comfortable retirement, but it really bothers me that people want to blame all our wills and our woes on teachers, on our contracts, on our benefits, because I don't think financially that's what's causing the problems in society. We want to bash teachers. One of the comments I made on our discussion board, I hear lots of students that I think would be great teachers that I've known here in my own school district. I suggest it, and very few of them want to go into it. One of the reasons they cite is they don't feel like they can make very good money in today's society out there. And the common theme that I hear quite often is, I don't want to go through the headaches. I go home and I hear my parents and I hear people in town complain about it so much. I don't know if I really want to go through that. And then every once in a while I come across like a 7th grade girl that I have right now. She already knows she's going to be a teacher. She's going to be a social studies teacher, and she wants to coach gymnastics. And that's the things that really interest her. She's a gymnast and she's into history, and she's a 7th grader, and that's exactly what she's going to do. So I think that's great that she's passionate about it. And I don't know, it's going to be a tough battle to fight. I know the contracts will change. I do think there's a role for the union to play. The wide-ranging perspectives is saying that the unions cause all the problems for kids, that they're not about what's best for kids. It was an interesting comment I saw there, all the way to that education can't survive without them, because it not only protects the interests of teachers, it does also of students. It's been my experience that all the union members that negotiate and administrators and school board people are all passionate about what is best for kids. The challenge is that times people have different opinions of what is best for kids, and when it comes around contracts, it's financially more money to keep quality teachers, more money in the classroom, less money in contracts. It's a battle we always face. One benefit that my school district has had is we have a tax sheltered annuity. Teachers coming in after their 6th year can get a 2% dollar for dollar matching. If you have your master's, it's 3% after your first year dollar matching the rest of your teaching career. For administrators, it's 5%. It used to be 8%, and that was negotiated down. But it's a benefit that I understand not all school districts have. But it's been a great recruiting tool for us to bring people in, because quite often we may be a few dollars short on the contract coming in of what they'll get paid, but we offer that benefit long term, and it's really helped our district in attracting people to come to our district to teach sometimes. We may not get as much right now, but you know, if you spend the next 15, 20 years here, our district's going to give you a lot more long term. I don't know what the answer is. I think one last thing, the aspect of tying student performance into teacher pay is an interesting one. I think there's a place in there that it has to be sometime, but to think it can be just like business and tie performance into sales or always into some sort of numbers. As a teacher, I can't control the kids I get each year, and to decide whether I have a high performing or low performing group, how much I get paid or don't get paid. I think that's unfair. As a coach, I was in that boat. I used to be in the Lake Conference and played against Hopkins, Wayzata, Minnetonka, Eden Prairie, game in, game out, when we're a shrinking school to half the size of all them, and I lost my job because we didn't win enough, and I didn't have the same tools to work with. Then the next guy comes in after me, we change, we go into the Minnesota and in the classic suburban, all of a sudden we're not playing against the biggest schools in the state anymore, and we've got a decent program again, and we're winning a few more games. But the competition changed. Same kids, but we had different competition. But the measure was still winning and losing, your win-loss record. And I hate to see that happen in the classroom. I think it's important to protect teachers, that you don't have an upset school board member or an upset parent, whereas they can go and run coaches out, which happens in Minnesota all the time. That would be terrible and tragic if that happened in the classroom, and it's great to have that protection. Lastly, I'll comment on this extended daytime, the work you do outside of your classroom. Our contract is not an hourly contract, even though we have some components put in it. I think it's sad to see that 8-hour workday, because as a teacher, I'm hired to do my job. In physical education, I don't have a lot of paper grading, but when I teach health, I have a tremendous amount of grading. I might sit at school till 5:15, 5:30 and put in a 9.5 hour day if I'm not coaching at the time. But if I am coaching, if I'm in a high school sport, I'm gone till 7:30 at night, and then I have to come home and grade papers till 10 or 10:30 at night, and I'm still back at school between 7 and 7:30 in the morning. Back when I had to pick children up at day or drop children off at daycare, couldn't do it before 7:30, but our workday started at 7:15. I dropped my child off at 7:30, and fortunately I had an understanding principal that when other teachers complained, he said, hey, don't worry, Jeff's putting in plenty of hours and he's getting his job done. And I think when we're hired to do a job, there's things we have to do outside of our classroom day. That's just part of the deal. My wife has a business job. She's got a contract. She's got a salary. And some days she has 8-hour days, and sometimes she has 16-hour days. And sometimes she has to work some on the weekends and Sunday to do her job. That's just part of the deal. If you don't like it, you can always go get another job. For extra things that are outside of the teaching day, as coaching and supervising of co-curricular activities, we have stipends, and I think that's a good thing to have. But when I'm asked once or twice a year to come in and supervise a band concert or a dance, I have no problem doing that because that's part of my job. Now, I don't want to really do it 5 or 6 times or once a week like I do when I'm a co-curricular as a coach or something like that. I want to be compensated. But I think it's part of our job, and we do have some union sticklers that get way too wound up about that. That does bother me. And but I've been very fortunate to close with is a district that I think is me as a leader. If I was working in a school district, I'd want to work with people, and I really respect the current principal that I work for from that aspect, and our superintendent. Our superintendents create a great relationship with our union and our teachers. Our past negotiations have gone outstanding, and we're very comfortable with each other. And I would want to work with people rather than work to them and not let my certificate go to my head. But I think sometimes when I'm 54 years old, near the end of my career, I face things a little differently than when I was 24, because I had all the answers then.